Hello, everyone. Chris Guthrie here, host of Sellercast. And in today's episode, I speak with Kris Rivenberg, who's been selling on Amazon since August 2015. And in this episode, we talk about some of the successes, the struggles, and things that he would do differently as he went along the way growing his business that I think you'll enjoy. And also near the tail end of the conversation, we actually talk about the overall economy as a whole and how that may impact what types of products you should pick to sell on Amazon as well. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So let's start the show. And if you want to check out the show notes, you can go to sellercast.com/20. Hello, everyone. Chris Guthrie here. And with me as well is a fellow Kris. Starts with a K, though. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll give him some points there. But Kris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Anyways, interesting introduction here. But I'm glad that you're here to talk as well. And let's get the first question out of the way. You know, how long have you been selling on Amazon for? And then we'll kind of talk about some of your background and why you got into this business in the first place.
Well, I looked it up, and my first sale actually came in on August 20th, 2015. So not that long.
Okay. And so then what were you doing before you started selling on Amazon?
Well, I first was in the law firm business. I started a law firm. That wasn't working. It's just so inefficient. And then I went back to my internet marketing background and got into, I was developing some blogs and did some freelance work, but none of that was working out. I knew that I wanted to create something more systematic. So none of those things were working for me. So when the FBA movement came along, I was into that.
Okay, cool. And so then you have a law degree that I'm assuming, right? Or are you working in a law firm in some other capacity?
No, it was mine. Me and a partner started it. He was a friend in law school. And so we started it. But the problem was, one, my interest was never in law. I like law, but it was never something that, I really wanted to do. And it's just, once you get into it, it's such a grind. I mean, being a lawyer, especially now with the market saturation, is so much more difficult than a lot of things you can do. So there wasn't any enjoyment out of it. There wasn't any reward out of it. It was just one of those things I had to move away from.
Interesting. I've heard that before, that a lot of people that get law degrees, they'll get into it for a little while, but then they don't stick around very long. Maybe because of, what you just mentioned, it kind of being a grind and everything. But that's interesting. Okay. And so you tried so you went back, you tried some other things, different types of blogs, et cetera. And yeah, definitely Amazon is very much, from, all the sellers I talk to, it can be very well systemized. So is that the primary reason why you wanted to get going on Amazon? Just because you saw, okay, here's a business model where the process of what you need to do to be successful is a matter of, you're picking your product, you're launching your product, and you're growing that product, and then you're working on the next one and kind of going from there.
Yeah, my focus, first you've got to go where the money is, because if you're not in that area, then you're not going to make any money. So you have Amazon's where the money is. And then secondly, I had to build something where my time wasn't tied to the money, because if you're not doing that, then you're not in business. So it's one of those things where I'm definitely willing to put in the upfront work and build up the infrastructure and put up that upfront investment, but I'm looking for that down the road payoff. And so this is perfect for that.
That's a good point. I mean, it's not something that we touch on too often, but a lot of times people that are looking for something to build online in an internet-based business, this is okay too if this is what people want to do. But a common mistake is people end up just kind of creating a job for themselves. They do something online, but then it's tied to their individual time. And yeah, if you're building a business like this, then you can eventually hire employers, hire VAs, or whatever you might like to do along the way to free up more of your time and not really tied to that. So that's great. So was this your first experience selling on Amazon in August of 2015, or had you been selling something in the past before as well?
I had gotten into it 3 Christmases ago. So about 3 years ago, I got into the retail arbitrage, and not that I read anything or was in any particular course. It was just something. I knew Amazon was a money ground, but I didn't know how to do the FBA thing, private label thing. And so I got into retail arbitrage, and back to our first point, that was a mess because everything was tied to my time. Even though theoretically it sounds great to buy a product for, let's say, $10 and sell it for $25, the friction to get to that profit was so great. It's just, for me at least, anyways, I could never make that into a business. So I did give that a try, and I was selling on Amazon. and I got to, I felt a little bit of the Amazon power, but I never, I knew that couldn't work.
Hmm. Yeah, I've talked to people that are doing retail arbitrage, and it really depends, right? I mean, I think that it's almost like the niche you go into. Well, I guess the same could be said here for people that are selling private label, but yeah, I know that there's any time you're doing retail arbitrage, you're going to have smaller margins than you do on your private label stuff. So that's cool. Okay, so then what are your main goals for this business? And then as we kind of go along here, I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that you're doing to grow and talk about it as well. But so what are your goals for this? You're selling on Amazon. It started in Amazon, or August rather, was your first sale, August 2015. We're recording this in January. What are your goals for this?
Well, my first goal was just to get 5,000 a month gross revenue. That was it, because you see a lot of people with amazing results, and I didn't know if I could be one of those people, but I just wanted to start off with 5,000. If I could get 5,000, then I knew that this would, that could snowball into greater things. So the first thing was 5,000, and then my goal, mainly just to make. I mean, it's just about money, and then secondarily to that is to create that systematic process of making money.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very much just the going for the lifestyle and of the business that it can provide to you. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. And so you're already past that 5K mark. Then you said.
Yes, I am.
All right. So then that was your first goal. Now you're looking here, start of the new year, about what you're planning on doing next. What are you going to try and do to grow your business as you look into 2016? You've hit your goal 5K plus, and you're going along the way. What's your plan to try and scale your business?
Well, the really good thing for me is I've seen to I think it's somewhat lucky that I've backed my way into a good niche, and I've got a solid product to build off of. For me, my business growth is going to be based on product extensions. I'm not having any trouble selling once I get in there, and I get some sales under me and get more established and get some reviews. I'm not having any problem selling. It's just a matter for me of getting inventory and new products and putting them out there, because I'm doing several things right. So with that, and with a good niche and a good supplier, this is getting easier and easier as I go along.
Oh, interesting. That's great. So then we'll dive into both those elements. The supplier, how you went through that process, some of the niches you don't have to talk about the niche specifically that you picked, but rather maybe how you arrived at it. But before that, actually, I'm curious. So, how much time are you spending now on your Amazon business? Is this something that's your full time thing, or are you running other businesses or doing other tasks as well at the same time?
This is not a full time thing. This gets about 40% of my time, and so the workload depends just based on what I'm doing. Recently, it's been heavy because I'm getting my third product, and I've also been looking at other products. Because, like I said, this is just like a print money thing. It's like more product, more money. So it's just about expanding as fast as possible. And Amazon recently, this was interesting. They recently increased my storage limit from 5,000 to 8,000. Now, before they extended it, I asked them if they would, and they said no, that you haven't increased your sales enough. And then like
Oh,
three
interesting.
3 days later, they give me 3,000 more storage units. So it's like, okay, I don't know if it was a coincidence or what, but either way, I'm happy about that. So I've been spending more time lately, but there's been some weeks where I've spent as little as 10 hours.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, and so, and for people that are listening too, if you're just getting started out selling and you're running into that issue where you have the storage limit, one thing you can do if Amazon won't increase that is you can just have them store. Say if you're using a freight forwarder, you can have some of those units stored at their warehouse. Or worst case scenario, I suppose you could have some of the units sent to your actual house or location where you're living, I guess. But that's another thing. But for the most part, I've heard people not having trouble with that. So maybe it's a more recent change, I guess, along the way. But okay, so then about 10 hours per week, though. So what are you primarily? So you mentioned you're primarily working on launching new products. You have two right now, and you're working on getting a third out. How are your sales split right now between those two products? Are you seeing like an 80-20 type thing? Or are you seeing closer to 50-50?
One of them is dominant. I would say it's 70-30. I'm working
Hmm.
on increasing the second product sales. I recently lowered the price on it to increase the sales. And then this third product they should be sending it out through by air in the next 2 days. And then I just received some samples at my home. I've got about 18 sets that I'm going to send to Amazon as well. So I'll have those 4 up pretty soon.
Oh, okay. And so about 70/30, that makes sense. I mean, everyone I talk to, they start with one product and they get onto the next one. It's always going to be, of course, most of the sales for the first one to start out. So then what did you do to get your initial sales? And then what are you trying to do now that you're at 70/30 split? What are you trying to do to get that other 30, trying to drive even more sales for your business?
Well, initially, I didn't do anything besides some broad pay per click, and this is without reviews. Like no reviews, just put it up there and it sold. I mean, it didn't sell great, but it was, it was moving, and so that I think I really did back myself into just a good product. I picked something, and there are people, there are FBA people out there just private labeling. It's not all just like your standard companies, but it's still pretty broad. And so I didn't have to do very much, but recently, right before Christmas, I made a huge mistake. I did the classic checkbox mistake where you have the
Oh dear.
100%.
I know. As soon as you said checkbox mistake, I knew exactly where you were going. But yeah, go ahead.
So I knew all about the checkbox. It wasn't like a surprise to me. I just was working on my listing late one night and neglected to see it. And so it was really weird because I've recently been concerned about cell phone security and how much time like I spend looking at my cell phone. I got into this incessant habit of checking my FBA sales and checking my email. So I restored my phone completely, right? So I restored my phone at about 11:30, and so at about 2 hours later, I have I have like 700 units fly off the shelf within a span of like 1 hour. So it was just weird that right after I took my FBA app, the Amazon Seller app, off my phone, that happens. And then the next morning at 11 a.m., I see I'm a bestseller, and I'm like, uh-oh, like I'm not a bestseller. so I so I knew something went wrong, and so I checked, and sure enough, like I just got just bought out, and then I mean they didn't take all of my inventory, but they took a lot, and so I contacted Amazon ASAP, and it ended up I couldn't get back 150 units, so 150 units went out the door for free, and so the cool thing though about that is that it spiked my sales. And so I got to find out some information on like, what it takes to be a BSR, whatever. And then beyond that though, ever since that day or ever since that span of 2 days, my sales have been like, it kicked my sales up at like 5 or 7 units a day.
Mhm.
So it's really cool.
And so that's interesting. So it's basically something that was really terrible, but then you're able to get Amazon to cancel a lot of those orders that hadn't yet been fulfilled. So it was a 100% coupon that was basically posted to the main sales page. And then presumably some deal site or deal forum, there's so many of them out there, might have picked it up. Someone saw it while they're browsing Amazon, they posted it, and then everyone was just like, hey, take this free product. Were you able to track down the site that had posted it? Or I suppose it doesn't matter. It could have been anyone.
I wasn't able to, and the sales all happened between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. Central Time. So it was a real quick run. Like it wasn't like a kind of a thing where it picked up over time. It just like it was gone in a second. So I'm glad I was able to get most of them back though, because I mean those FBA fees would have hurt.
Yeah, and that was so the 700, was that all the stock that you had for that product remaining?
No, I had more product, but
Oh, okay. So you
I
just
mean
stopped it in time though.
I just I guess they're whoever was there, they got all they could, and that was it. So because
Yeah.
the good thing it was limited to one per customer. So
Yeah. And so for people who are listening that might not know what the checkbox is, since we didn't dive into it, do you want to just briefly tell them specifically what that error is so they can make sure they avoid it?
yeah, just when you're creating a promotion, you have to go down to there's like a there's several little things that Amazon lists that you have to check or uncheck for different options, and one of those is the checkbox to have the promotional code display on your product detail page. So if someone looks on your listing and you have your 100% off promo code on there, then they can just get it for free. And that's what happened. A lot of people got mine for free. So you want to make sure to uncheck that box so it doesn't display on your detail page.
Yeah. And so the common mistake is that for some reason, Amazon leaves that on by default as opposed to off by default. But I
And
guess they figure that most people that are creating promo codes, aren't doing, different types of things where they're trying to drive a bunch of sales at a really low or free price. And maybe that's their reasoning for it. But I've talked to a lot of sellers, and this is a common thing that's happened. I believe that in one of our earlier episodes. I'll link to it in the show notes. One of our earlier episodes has happened to another seller as well, and I don't think he was able to get that many canceled. So you seem to have fared better there.
I did fare better, but the weird thing is that Amazon is so discombobulated with this. I mean, first of all, wouldn't you think they just put like a bright red box since it's become such an issue? And I mean, and then secondly, like when you call in to like alert them of the problem, like a lot of times the initial waves of support you get will just tell you like, oh, it's okay, like not a big deal. Like, it's like they put me off too. And I just kept, I kept asking questions and I kept pestering them until finally I got to someone who understood the nature of the problem. And it's just funny to me that they don't like, it's not more of like something that they focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm not really sure if they just, I don't know. You think, I hear some people talk about it. Do you think that they'd have maybe changed it so far? But maybe they will eventually. But actually, I want to go back to, and that's just a good lesson for people that are selling, both experienced sellers and sellers that are newer and starting out listening. In case you haven't had that mistake happen, make sure you always double check that. But I want to go back to the fact that you picked a product and you were able to start selling it before you even had reviews, which always would signify that you're in a good spot. Anytime I talk to someone and they have their product up and they're already getting sales before they've really even done much promotion, then it's like, that's a really, really good sign. So you don't have to go into what you're selling or necessarily what niche you're in, but what did you do to find it? Were you just looking on Amazon? And if you were, just can you talk about what you're looking for when you're on there?
What I was looking for was the most boring product that you could find in the world. Like I was just looking, like I just wanted to find something that nobody cared about, that it's not exciting. And, I didn't necessarily have to know anything about it. And lightweight, relatively small to medium packaging, something I could get a lot of, and something that would be cheap to make. And so that's what I was looking for. And I mean, the main thing is boring, because if you pick something exciting, you can guarantee it's going to attract all sorts of people. So that was my focus on it. Wasn't so much, there wasn't a focus on anything else like BSR. Like I wasn't looking for BSR. I was just looking for like, okay, do people buy this one? And then two, like, is it boring as hell? So that's where I was focused.
Okay. And so then now that you've been selling within that space and you've presumably done a better job with your listing and you've got better packaging and everything else, have you noticed any other competitors come in yet, or is it still pretty wide open?
I think there have been a number of competitors that have come in, but they haven't put a dent in my sales. I mean, I can see the competition. They're there and they're racking up a lot of reviews really fast, and a lot of people have a lot more reviews than I do. I haven't focused on reviews actually, because I'm a little bit leery of where Amazon's going with reviews. So, but my products have been selling fine regardless.
Yeah, so you've just been doing reviews from email follow-up sequences then, or have you been doing some other stuff as well, like top reviewers?
Well, I was going to do top reviewers, and then I got derailed by the whole like,
oh yeah,
by the run on my inventory. But no, I mean my initial reviews came from friends and family. Actually, I got another good thing from the run on my inventory is those people that got it for free actually left a number of reviews. I've used Secret Deals Club, and got some reviews there. And but other than that, that's I haven't. It's there. I don't have that many reviews.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And so then one thing I wanted to ask too is, as well as beyond the products that you're launching right now, I'm kind of coming back now to your goals. You mentioned originally that part of it was just looking for a business that could be systemized and they would be able to generate cash. Are you thinking about potentially trying to sell this eventually, or what are your goals for that?
I haven't. I have thought about selling it, and I would love to sell it. I mean, if there came an opportunity to sell, I would be on it in a heartbeat. But it's not something that I'm like. I don't concern myself with it, if you know what I mean. Like, it's something that I know the possibility exists, but I'm not waiting for that white horse to come down and say, hey, we've got we're ready to buy you at 20 times revenue or whatever. I'm just keeping going, and if somebody wants it, then it'll happen, and if not, I'll just keep making more products.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, if you're ever thinking about selling, then it seems like, as I've talked to a lot of different brokers that are, that primarily have been selling websites and other types of digital properties, but even more now, people are talking about selling Amazon FBA businesses. And we actually had a broker on to the show as well, which I'll again have in the show notes. You go to sellercast.com/20 to go check out the show notes for this show, and then I'll have links to those shows as well if you wanted to check those out as well. The other thing I was curious about actually is beyond the mistake on the run on the inventory, was there anything else that you've done along the way that you made mistakes on and that you think that people that are maybe just getting started or even people that are experienced sellers could learn from?
Absolutely. I've made so many mistakes. It's ridiculous. The first thing is
That's fine. Go ahead.
I just continually make mistakes and like trip and fall, get up and then make trip and fall. So it's a continual learning process. First one I would say is my brand name is too narrow. And it's just you're not I thought about this, I was cognizant of it, but I still didn't make it broad enough. And so I was thinking more within my product extension domain, but now that I'm up and selling, I want to expand to a lot more stuff. So and my name just doesn't fit for some of the extensions, but at this point, I think I'm stuck with it. I don't really want to rename my company. And so I'm just going to stick with it. And, oh, well, it's like one of those things where I wish it could be different, but if someone else is listening to this, I would say definitely pick something more general. Secondly, I opened up my pro account too soon. So I would say wait to open up your pro account because it's $40 a month. That's money. I would wait to open it up until you're, really close to ready to sell. The first time I didn't know what I was doing when I was shipping and I thought the supplier would ship it to me and I didn't know how that worked. So I had to hire a freight forward company, pay a premium. And, they were very helpful, but I paid a premium on that. So I lost probably, somewhere between $500 to $1,000 in unnecessary shipping costs that first time. Second time, I could have shipped for cheaper and faster if I'd have just gone by air because my freight forward guys, like for some reason, they overcharged me. And then when I delivered to the residence, they charged me a $200 residence fee because, I guess they've got to bring it down off the truck. So that's a $200 fee from the local company. So shipping has been a big a pain point for me, and something where it's just you do as much as you can as fast as you can, and hope it's as good. Hope it's the best, the most efficient option. But shipping has really been a problem for me, so something I'm trying to get better at.
Let's dig into that then a bit. So you did freight forwarder the first time. What are you doing right now for your more recent orders? What are you planning on doing? Are you still using freight forwarders? Are you talking to your suppliers and then using their DHL account to ship, or what are you doing for those?
Yeah, I'm going to use their air shipping.
Oh, okay. And so what's that going to be in terms of a cost savings for you? Do you have like a rough percentage if you think of what it would cost for a single shipment shipped through your freight forwarders versus with your supplier?
Well, yeah, my freight forwarder last time was supposed to be $900, and this is by sea, and this time it's going to be the same price, and this is by air. So, I mean, it looks like they were just inflating the charge on me. Yeah. So,
well, perhaps offline we'll talk about the company. I don't know if we should really talk about it here publicly. I don't want to have anyone coming down on us later. But okay, so that's now the new strategy, and so. Are you using the same? Is it the same supplier for all of your products currently?
Yes. So, well, my latest extension, which is unrelated to the first three, is a different supplier.
Oh, okay. And so then let's talk a little bit about your suppliers as well now. So did you find everyone through Alibaba or are you using other sources as well?
No, just Alibaba.
Okay. And do you think at some point, I always talk to sellers that are, going to the Canton Fair, and I'd like to actually go sometime just to meet up with other people that are doing well enough that they'd want to go to China, and also just 'cause it'd be fun to go there. But have you considered going to the Canton Fair or anything like that for your business in 2016? Or you feel like, well, when you need to, maybe you'll do that?
I would love nothing more than to go to China and just check everything out, get a better feel for it, because when you're over here and you're just everything through Skype, you don't have much of a feel for anything that's going on. So I would love to go, but right now it's just like, it's a matter of where do you want to put your money. And so my money is best put just going into inventory for the time being. I think a trip to China is in my future, but not my near future,
Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be until maybe the latter half of the year, but but was curious to see what you thought about that. Uh, so then, are there any other things that have come up during the shipping process? Like, are you using an inspection service, or are you doing anything like that along the way, or were you fortunate in that the products arrived as you wanted them to look and everything else?
I'm fortunate. I'm really lucky because my supplier is great. They, the person who I deal with, I have, a really good relationship with her, and I trust her. And my products have all arrived in good condition, looking good. They send me pictures beforehand, so she's kind of like my pseudo inspector, and everything's worked out well with that. So far so good.
Okay, good. And so, I guess is there anything else that you think that people that are listening that you've learned from your experience of selling on Amazon would be helpful for them to know? And then, other than that, I think we'll probably wrap it up here. But yeah, anything that you'd like to kind of close out on?
Well, there's a few things I'd like to say. First of all, invest in crisp, clear pictures. Those make a huge difference. At least for me, I think people can see my product better, so they can experience it better, and it puts them that much closer to buying it. Secondly, for SEO, like if you want to increase your rankings, what I'm doing now is I've lowered my product price, and I've increased my pay per click bid for exact match keyword terms. So that way I'm only getting bids or clicks on those keyword terms, and then the product's more likely to convert, and I'm more likely to raise in the rankings for those.
Mhm.
So I would start off with broad targeted pay per click when you start, and then just get an idea, look at the data, analyze it. I found out so much and got so many advantages just from you know bidding broadly, and then like just looking everything and then analyzing it. So I would do that to start off with. A few more things here.
I was gonna say on the pay per click. Then, so is that how you initially started, or did you just do? How did you initially do your pay per click, and then is that something that kind of evolved based on your experience of testing?
I initially did a small, broad pay per click. Like my bid wasn't high, but it just I had no feel for what I was doing besides like what I'd learned. So I just started small and then grew as I did, and then I found out where it was too much to bid for pay per click, like where I couldn't get a return on my money.
Mhm.
So I keep my pay per click about under 75 cents. Other people they run wild with it, but that gets too inefficient, and you don't want to get into that kind of realm unless you're gathering data. That's the only time where I would overpay for advertising. And then a couple more things is I read on Facebook a lot of people, it's like they try one product, they try two, neither works, they get really discouraged. And I think people have got to keep in mind that like you this is a whole there is a whole spectrum out there of things you can sell on Amazon. You might have picked two and failed out of like 500,000, so I think people it's easy to get discouraged when you don't see results like everyone else, but I could have easily picked like a loser product and then been in like a totally opposite situation where I'm not growing, I'm getting two sales per day, or so you've really like to me you've got to one get lucky a little bit, but two also stack the deck in your favor, and not just if you get a commodity product, you're going to be in trouble. So you've got to find a way to in some way, form, or fashion to not be a complete commodity, whether it's changing your color, better packaging, etc. That's something I would do. And then one more thing here. I try to deal with a supplier, an actual supplier, and not a reseller, because there's a lot of resellers out there, and you'll pay a premium just for them to be your middleman.
How did you make sure you were talking to your actual supplier when you found them on Alibaba?
Well, I asked them,
Or
and
is it
then
tough? I guess, right?
it is tough. You never
You never
you
know for sure. I guess, right?
you do never know for sure, but there are things that can like you can kind of like get a feel just through talking to them. And I did outright ask them, but secondly, like pictures, I have them send me pictures. And I also just I don't look for a quick relationship. Like if someone's like trying to get you into a quick deal, sometimes that might be an indicator. I'm looking to just talk to you, like whether they put pressure on you, whether they're trying to, if they're just talking to you. Like one thing I do with my supplier is we talk about non-business stuff a lot. I like to build relationships with who I deal with. We talk about cupcakes sometime just because that's what she's interested in. We talk about cupcakes and baking because you want to invest in these people. These people, you're fragile to them. So you want to invest in them because you don't want you want them to treat you right, and then at the same turn, you want to treat them right. It's a reciprocal relationship. So, that's something you want to really do, and it's where everything can fall apart if you get the wrong person. So, I try to talk to them a lot, and I don't mind spending days talking to them. Like over the course of several days, just video chatting with them on Skype or regular chat, just because it's worth it to spend that time and know who you're dealing with.
That's good. I love it. And I especially liked your point too earlier where you talked about, selling a commodity product and how that's going to be a struggle. And I know that even just the further along we go in the market, the more that will be the case. People keep trying to sell the same types of products without doing any differentiation, then it's going to be a struggle. So
can I add two more things?
Yeah, sure.
One thing is, and I consulted with someone from China on this, is that you're going to, and everybody knows it by now, but you're going to experience a lot more competition now because there's going to be a lot more Chinese sellers selling directly on Amazon. So that's just something for everyone to keep in mind and, know going forward. It's just something you have to deal with. The business world's changing. So, it's just something to look forward to and try to adapt to. And then the other thing is, I think the economy is back more on shakier grounds, just by judging by the feel I get from the stock market and everything. It's like nobody knows. You can't time these things or whatever. But with that said, if you're thinking about buying, getting into a product, I would go less on the luxury products for middle class and more on staples, and stuff for either that wealthier people buy or stuff that is generally needed more. The further you get away from necessities, I think I would decrease my exposure to those type of products.
Some next level stuff there. I think that a lot of people don't think about that, to be honest, when they're looking at their research. They're looking at what's selling. They're looking on Amazon. Maybe they are doing the same strategy like you mentioned before, where they're looking for those boring products to go after that haven't really been revitalized. But that's a good point. If there is an economy issue, hopefully there won't be, but obviously everything's kind of cyclical. And if there is a little bit of a downtrend, then yeah, if you have a product that's not necessarily a necessity, then that could be a struggle in trying to get those sales going. If you're selling it on Amazon, when you're based on basing those numbers on pre-economy issues.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Well, cool. Thank you so much, Kris. And I'm glad you're able to come on and share some experience with us. And just thank you again so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. And that was the show with Kris. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode and picked up some unique insights that he shared as we got into this conversation. And of course, if you want to check out the show notes, you can go to sellercast.com/20. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've enjoyed this episode or any of the other episodes we've had, please do go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever it may be that you're listening to this show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.